Welcome back, viewers at home. You're still joining me for a lovely conversation. I remember last week we spoke all things considering nucleotides and how essential they are in terms of, cell health as well as regeneration, and how it helps you to actually be at your best. Today, last week, we were touching a bit on gut health. I think today we're going to focus more on gut health because we know a lot of people struggle with gut health, especially when they're stressed. Where someone's like, I can't eat, when I eat, my stomach aches. Let's find out what it means. But joining me to understand it better is Rochell Petersen as well as Rentia Tukker, who are the dynamic duo behind NucleoCell Nutrition and all things wellness at a cell level, speaking to your DNA. And tonight, these entrepreneurs are health committed entrepreneurs, and they've taken traditional conversations around wellness to a new level, diving deep into the building blocks of your life, which is your DNA. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me yet again today.
Thank you, Maimuna.
Thank you so much, Maimuna. It's always a pleasure, and good evening, everybody.
Now, tonight we're talking all things gut health. And I think my first question tonight is what makes gut health such a key factor in our overall health? Because once we think our heart, our brain, our muscle, but the gut, we just take it like, that plastic bag we use to just dump trash is like, well, it's here to take out all whatever we consume and digest it and sort it out itself. But why is it such a key factor?
The gut is the centerpiece that connects to all the other organs. And research has also shown that our gut, brain, skin axis are the three main organs that give instruction. All the other organs get instruction from those three. So it's a pivotal area where all the other organs connect from the gut. And health on a fundamental level, on gut level.
And Rochelle, would you like to add something on that?
Sure, the gut, this journey has been so amazing, and it has just made me look at our gut, at my gut completely differently. One of the most interesting things that I think Rentia also mentioned it last week is that our guts actually have more nerve endings than our brain. A lot of people say that the gut, or the new buzzword lately is that the gut is the second brain.
Oh, okay.
But considering that it has more nerve endings than the actual brain, and whatever the brain requires actually comes from the gut. I think it's a paradigm shift in terms of where your brain really is. Because your gut, like Rentia just explained now, that it is integral in the function of so many things, how your brain works. Yeah.
And with that being said, I mean, behind the scenes, I had, insight to a lovely conversation in terms of how our gut looks and how it operates. And I'd like for you to just help us build that connection between one's gut health as well as, the immune system in that sense.
So our immunity starts in our gut. There are very specialized cells that live within the villi of our gut. So the villi are these finger-like protrusions, and they are covered with a mucosal layer. And in that mucosal layer lives the bacteria, fungi, the biome that is in our gut. And that biome produces serotonin and dopamine. 70% of our feel-good hormones are actually produced in our guts. So if your gut is compromised, there will be neurological problems as well. And we see the pressure with the incredible stress we live under. We've had talks now of children not being able to cope with all the demands that life places on them. And it's a stress-related thing. When you have stress, your body is not in a rest and digest mode. So your gut is important for digestion, absorption, and elimination. And when you're in a fight or flight mode, your immune system is compromised because you now need to survive. And fighting a bacteria or a virus is sort of a secondary issue. You now need to focus on survival, and then it's not digestion and rest and proper absorption. So we often see that dysfunction in the gut that relates to the rest of the body that struggles.
And Rochelle, I'd like for you to expand more with something that you touched on, saying that our gut is our second brain. And this then makes me wonder to say, how does then stress get to affect us in the gut like that? Because one would think stress is here because you get the headache, and whenever it's in the gut, it's like, oh, maybe something I ate, or you just can readily push it away. But can you help us in getting that clarity of understanding the role stress plays in what happens in our gut in that sense?
Sure, that would definitely be a bit more scientific question. But however, what I definitely can add is, because for me, I always say that yes, we are partners, but I'm always the proof producer as well, because it has done such, it has changed my life.
Okay.
In terms of actually utilizing the product. And one thing that I can tell you is, especially when you start using NucleoCell products, within your first 2 weeks, there's a sense of clarity that you actually get. And for me, what is amazing is, why am I getting that clarity? But it's actually because my gut is actually sorted out. So like Rentia said, all your feel-good hormones comes from your gut. So that, for me, that's the impact that it has had in my life. From a science perspective, Rentia would be more suited to explain to definitely explain the science for you. And yeah, I think she also brought the squeegees just to explain even more today.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I'd
Rentia.
love to show you that. So it is not the gut that produces the serotonin and dopamine and some of the vitamins and minerals as well. It's the
Yeah.
bacteria that live in our gut. That is our biome. So in our gut, there's actually a ratio of 10 bacteria to 1 human cell. And Dr. Kuppel always says, if an alien would look at a human, they'd think this is a wandering bag of bacteria.
Yes.
Because we have such an intricate relationship with the bacteria that reside in our gut.
Yeah.
And a proper gut needs to have villi, which are the finger-like protrusions in our gut. And there's a mucosal layer that covers these finger-like protrusions. And within this mucosal layer, it's mucus, slimy layer. It protects the cells, because that's where your first contact with food and pathogens and germs comes in our body. So it's within this lining in our gut. And in that mucosal layer, the bacteria have a habitat. So if you have a proper developed gut and the villi are structurally well developed, this is an ideal place for the mucosal layer to develop properly, to be intact so that there aren't any leaky areas. Whereas a compromised gut will look like this one, full of holes. The villi are like rough-edged. There will be pockets of inflammation. Undigested protein and foreign particles will end up in the lymph layer and in the bloodstream, and that will cause massive inflammation in the body.
And with that being said, now how would products like that of IntestAid as well as NT Immune really assist in, you know, trying to avoid your gut to look like that orange fella there, but more of the pink one?
So all the NucleoCell products contain nucleotides, which are the building blocks of our cells. And if you have proper cellular development, the cells develop in the crypts of the villi, and then they move upwards. So if you have proper cell development, the structure of your gut is just much better developed. So the whole functioning and working of the gut can be optimized.
And now, Rochelle, as someone who speaks about, basically, you're someone who's consuming the product and you really can say that it actually does assist you. Can you take us through to what are some of the differences that you've noticed in terms of when you're stressed, when you never used to take, you know, NutriCells in that sense, versus now that you are, and how stress affects you differently to what it did before?
Shoo, so many. I don't think the program is long enough for me to explain everything. But actually, interesting enough, Rentia and I were looking at certain videos the other day.
Yeah.
Well, no, today. Was it today? But we were looking at videos on when I started, especially with the physical challenge,
Yeah.
versus within a 2-month period. And one of the challenges that I had from a physical point of view is I had my arms are very big, but it had those hanging type of, what do I call it? It's like
We
skin.
always say the Michelin mannequin.
The Michelin, yes, you know the Michelin, that
They've
is
got little
literally,
tubes.
actually the Oros man.
Oh, yeah.
That's literally how my
Yeah.
arms used to look. And we saw 2 months later that is completely, it's completely gone. And Rentia was explaining to me that it's actually the lymph Rentia showed you these squeegees about compromised gut.
Yeah.
So one of the things is your when when food is digested, there's foreign particles that the body doesn't know what to do with, and it stores it in your within your fat cells.
Fat cells.
And yes, and your lymphatic, what do you call it? Your
The lymphatic system.
yeah, your lymphatic system. And what that Oros Maniki effect was actually all the foreign particles, because of my digestive system that is not working well. And 2 months later, it's completely it's not there anymore. So besides the fact that you feel better mentally, but physically your body, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you were super
Magical.
it's magical, and it all comes down to the science. In the previous episode, Rentia explained that your gut is renewed every 3 to 5 days. It is your organ with the highest cellular turnover. So, and that it's half the size of a tennis court.
Yeah.
So when you have the building blocks that is required to replace all of that, that is why I think also you get that mental effect, that clarity first before anything else. But yeah, so it's really amazing. It's really an amazing product.
What we also need to remember is that nucleotides are the building blocks of all the bacteria in our gut as well.
Oh.
So when you start taking nucleotides as a supplement, you upregulate the good bacteria, and they secrete all sorts of butyrate is one. It's a butyric acid, which lowers the pH in certain areas in our gut. And then you have die-off of the wrong bacteria. So some of your bifidobacteria are part of the butyrate group, and it's important that they secrete the right pH level of, it's not an enzyme, they secrete this butyric acid that then lowers the pH, and then their population can grow and flourish. So the point that I wanted to make was that the nucleotides are the building blocks of the good bacteria in our gut as well, and then they outcompete the bad bacteria. So you have more of the good going on, and that just enhances and optimizes the way in which our body functions.
And with that being said, what should people watch out for if their gut as well as immune systems are now out of sync? Because at times we find out when we're having, that inflammation or that flare up, to say when you go to the doctor, then they're like, it's gut related. But at home, what are some of the, lifestyle changes or supplements that we need to consider before, or rather after telling us in terms of what are some of those tell signs and symptoms when it comes to indicating
the
that?
obvious signs, like irregular bowel movements. We don't often talk about it, but our bowel should evacuate completely at least once a day.
Oh.
Being constipated and having a bowel movement once a week, that's terrible. Think of everything that is fermented and fermenting in your stomach and in your gut and in your intestines. It's terrible. The inflammation that arises because of that, and the toxins that build up, and the bacteria that grows because the wrong food is there. It's not really nutrition for our bodies. It feeds all the wrong things. So changes in bowel habits, if you've got diarrhea the one day and you're constipated the next, that's a telltale sign that something's wrong, or the food that you are eating is not wholesome or nutrient dense enough to feed whatever the good bacteria is that need to be in the gut. Then bloating, having cramps, nausea and vomiting would be an obvious sign. But there are subtle signs, and skin is one of them. Acne, back acne, pimples on the arms, certain areas of the skin with psoriasis or eczema, contact dermatitis, all those things point to a compromised gut.
Wow.
Because the skin is trying to assist the body in detoxing and showing that there is underlying inflammation. So those are the not as obvious signs that are also related to gut health.
I know we have run out of time, but I feel like this is quite an important question for me to ask in terms of what trends in gut health and immunity research do you expect, and how do you believe, NucleoCell Nutrition would be responding?
We are very excited because the link between gut, skin, and immunity, that axis, is recognized now by everybody. And the research will also focus more on how those three communicate with each other through the vagus nerve and how they are all linked. So we love the direction that it's going.
And we are very hopeful because I believe we are in good hands. But ladies, thank you so much for joining me for our second part, and yet there is more to speak on in terms of what you have to offer South Africans or just the globe at large when it comes to nucleocell nutrition. But thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mamina.
Thank you for having
Viewers
us.
at home, that was my dynamic duo giving us insight in terms of what exactly, when they say you have a gut or you have guts, don't take it in the sense of that you're brave. It's the sense that you need to be brave enough to look into what you're consuming and ensuring that your cupboard does have a nucleocell supplement so that you get those nucleotides doing the necessary work on a cell level. Because I think in a week, 3 to 5 days, that's when your cells get to regenerate in that sense. So let's do the self-care internally as well and not just externally. But that's where we close it off for now. We'll see you just after this ad break.